My beloved brothers and sisters, there are moments in life when it feels as if everything has stopped working. No job, no opportunities, no open doors. You apply everywhere, and yet silence answers your prayers. But I want to tell you something today. When nothing seems to move on earth, heaven is moving on your behalf. You see, God is not preparing a job for you. He is preparing you for your calling. Sometimes He delays your employment to train your faith. He removes the paycheck so that you can learn to trust His provision. Because if you only depend on your salary, you will never know the joy of depending on your Savior. In the book of Genesis, Joseph was thrown into a pit, then into prison, yet those were not demotions. They were divine transitions. You may be in your pit season now, but remember this. The pit is only the pathway to the palace. God does not see you as jobless. He sees you as in training. He is building character, molding patience, and teaching obedience. Because before He promotes you publicly, He must prepare you privately. Do not despise the season of waiting. In waiting, God whispers. In silence, He shapes. In stillness, He speaks destiny. What looks like delay is divine design. If you trust Him, your future will not just bring employment, it will bring empowerment. You will not only earn a living, you will live a life of divine assignment. So stop saying, I'm looking for a job. Instead say, I'm walking into God's plan, for your steps are ordered. Your future is written, and your purpose is greater than your paycheck. When we face seasons of waiting, silence, or disappointment, it is easy to believe that God has forgotten us. We pray, we work hard, and yet things seem delayed. The promotion doesn't come, the business doesn't grow, and the opportunities seem to vanish one by one. In those moments, the heart whispers, maybe God said no. But what if the delay is not a denial? What if the waiting is the classroom where God teaches you the most powerful lessons of your destiny? Every delay in God's plan carries purpose, and every season of stillness carries unseen preparation. When God delays something in your life, it's not because He wants to punish you, it's because He wants to prepare you. Divine preparation takes time. Think of how long it took for Joseph's dream to come true. He saw a vision of leadership at a young age, but before he ever wore a crown, he wore chains. Before he ruled Egypt, he was betrayed by his brothers, sold as a slave, and thrown into prison. Each delay was not random, it was preparation. In the pit, Joseph learned humility. In Potiphar's house, he learned responsibility. In prison, he learned patience. And when the right time came, God elevated him in one day. The pit did not destroy him, it refined him. That is how God works. When it feels like He is doing nothing, He is actually doing His deepest work within you. Many people mistake delay for rejection, but God's timing is not our timing. Sometimes He withholds what you are praying for because the blessing is too big for your current capacity. If He gave it too soon, you might lose it. God is more interested in building your character than your comfort. He is not only preparing the blessing for you, He is preparing you for the blessing. A farmer does not plant a seed and harvest it the next day. The seed must die, take root, and grow beneath the soil where no one sees. In that hidden place, the miracle is forming. Likewise, when you cannot see progress, trust that God is working beneath the surface of your life. When you pray and nothing happens, do not lose faith. The silence of God is not His absence, it is often His strategy. God may be protecting you from something you cannot yet understand. Many times, what we call delay is actually divine protection. Maybe the job you wanted would have drained your spirit, or the opportunity you desired would have distracted you from your true calling. God sees the full picture, and when He says not yet, it is because He is aligning your future with His perfect will. Consider David. He was anointed as king while still a shepherd boy. He could have thought, why not now, Lord? Yet it took years before he actually sat on the throne. During that time, David learned to lead sheep before he could lead soldiers. He learned to face lions and bears before facing Goliath. He learned worship in the wilderness before ruling in the palace. The delay was divine, not denial. God's plan was working even when it looked like nothing was moving. The The same God who shaped David in the fields is shaping you in your waiting. Sometimes God delays your answer because he is developing faith that can stand storms. Quick blessings often produce weak faith. But when you have to wait, pray, and persevere, your roots go deep. You begin to know God not only as a giver, but as a sustainer. The delay teaches dependence. When everything you try fails, you learn to rest in the one who never fails. That is where your relationship with God matures, from requesting his hand to trusting his heart. There are moments when the delay feels painful, and you may question if God has forgotten you. But God never forgets his promises. What he spoke over your life will come to pass in the appointed time. Habakkuk 2:3 says, "For the vision is yet for an appointed time. Though it tarry, wait for it will surely come. It will not delay. The vision will not die. The dream will not fade. It is simply waiting for the divine schedule. God's delay is divine precision. He knows the exact moment when everything must align." When you begin to understand this truth, your attitude in waiting changes. Instead of complaining, you begin to praise. Instead of worrying, you begin to worship, because you know that even though the door hasn't opened yet, God is working behind it. The waiting room becomes a place of worship, and the delay becomes a declaration of faith. God uses this time to strengthen you, shape you, and separate you from anything that is not meant for your destiny. Every person used mightily by God went through a season of divine delay. Moses waited 40 years in the desert before leading Israel. Abraham waited 25 years for Isaac. Even Jesus waited 30 years before beginning his public ministry. God always prepares his servants before he promotes them. So if you are in a season of delay, do not despair. It means God is not done with you. He is still preparing you for something greater. When the right time comes, everything will shift suddenly. The door that remained shut will swing open with ease. The favor that seemed distant will overflow. You will realize that the waiting was not wasted. It was working for you. God's delay is divine preparation, not denial. Trust the process, stay faithful in the waiting, and remember, your destiny is being built in silence. What God has promised will come, not a day early and not a day late, but right on his perfect time. In life, many people define their worth by their job title, salary, or position in society. They chase opportunities, submit resumes, and feel discouraged when doors don't open. But what if the delay or rejection is not about your lack of qualification, but about God's higher preparation? You are not simply being hired for a position, you are being trained for a purpose. God's vision for your life is far greater than a job description. It is a divine calling that requires development, refinement, and transformation before manifestation. When God begins to prepare someone for purpose, he doesn't start by giving them power or position. He starts by shaping their heart. Look at Moses. Before he ever led the Israelites out of Egypt, he spent 40 years in the wilderness tending sheep. That was not a wasted season, it was divine training. Moses learned humility, patience, and leadership in solitude before facing Pharaoh in public. In the same way, when it seems like you're stuck in an ordinary place, doing an ordinary task, understand this. God often uses the ordinary to prepare you for the extraordinary. The waiting, the struggle, and the unseen work are all part of your divine education. God's training process is often uncomfortable because purpose is heavy. He cannot entrust great responsibility to a person whose character is untested. A job may use your skills, but purpose uses your soul. That's why before David became a king, he was a shepherd. Before Joseph became a ruler, he was a prisoner. Before Peter became an apostle, he was a fisherman. God uses hidden seasons to prepare his chosen ones. In those moments, you learn to listen, to obey, and to trust when nothing makes sense. The pain you are feeling is not punishment. It is preparation for what's coming. When you are hired for a job, you are trained for a task. But when God calls you to purpose, he trains you for transformation. Jobs can be lost, but purpose can never be taken away. It is eternal, rooted in who you are, not in what you do. God doesn't want you to depend on a paycheck. He wants you to depend on his plan, That's why sometimes He allows your earthly stability to shake, so you can discover divine stability. You might lose a job, but you will never lose your calling. The same God who provided for you yesterday will lead you into something greater tomorrow. When you see people succeeding while you are still struggling, it's easy to feel forgotten. But remember, everyone's training timeline is different. Some are trained for a sprint, others are trained for a marathon. You may be in a longer season because your calling requires deeper preparation. God doesn't build skyscrapers with the same speed He builds small houses. The foundation must go deeper. The more significant your purpose, the deeper your foundation must be. Every test, every delay, every disappointment is a tool God uses to strengthen your spiritual muscles for the journey ahead. During this training, God will sometimes isolate you. He will remove certain relationships, positions, and distractions from your life. It may feel lonely, but solitude is where vision is born. When you stop depending on people's approval and start listening to God's voice, your purpose begins to unfold. The wilderness becomes a workshop for destiny. There, God teaches you lessons you could never learn in comfort. He teaches you to rely on His word, to walk by faith, and to keep going even when you see no evidence of progress. The preparation is not wasted, it's sacred. Think about Joseph again. He had dreams of greatness, but before reaching the palace, he faced betrayal, slavery, and imprisonment. Every stage was God's classroom. In Potiphar's house, Joseph learned leadership and integrity. In prison, he learned interpretation and patience. By the time he stood before Pharaoh, he wasn't just a dreamer. He was a man molded by divine discipline. God doesn't rush His process. He perfects it. Joseph's years of hardship were not wasted. They were necessary to prepare him for the weight of influence that was coming. God's training is different from human training. Human systems prepare you for what you can do. God prepares you for who you must become. Purpose is not about a title. It's about transformation. You can be promoted without purpose and still feel empty. But when you walk in your divine assignment, even the smallest task becomes meaningful. You begin to see your life as a vessel for God's glory rather than a chase for success. When you understand that you are being trained for purpose, you begin to embrace challenges differently. Trials no longer discourage you, they educate you. Pain no longer weakens you, it builds you. Rejection no longer offends you, it redirects you. Everything that happens becomes part of God's curriculum. You start to realize that He is not only working through you, but within you. The training ground becomes holy ground because it is where your faith is forged and your calling is clarified. Eventually, when God opens the next door, you'll realize why the previous ones were closed. You'll see that the waiting was necessary, the struggle was essential, and the preparation was divine. You'll walk into your next season not just ready for work, but ready for worship. Not just prepared for tasks, but transformed for purpose. You are not just waiting for a job, you are being shaped for a kingdom assignment. What God has planned for you is bigger than a paycheck, greater than a promotion, and deeper than any career. You are part of a divine story, and while others may see you as unemployed or unfinished, heaven sees you as in training. Every day you trust, every prayer you whisper, every test you endure is preparing you for the moment when God will say, "Now." And when that moment comes, everything will make sense. The training will be complete, the purpose revealed, and you will understand that God was never delaying your destiny, He was developing it. There are moments in life when doors close suddenly, opportunities vanish, plans collapse, and dreams seem to drift away. It is natural to feel disappointed or even abandoned when this happens. But what if those closed doors are not punishments from God, but redirections from Him? What if every no you've received was actually protecting you from something smaller than what He has planned? When God closes a door, He does it out of love, not rejection. He is not trying to take something away from you. He is trying to guide you towards something greater that you cannot yet see. Closed doors are not signs of failure. They are signals of divine direction. We often pray for open doors, believing they are the only proof that God is working. Yet sometimes the greatest evidence of His presence is not the doors that open, but the ones that close. A closed door can save you from walking into something that looks good, but would have destroyed your peace, your purpose, or your faith. God sees what you cannot. He knows the path ahead, the people involved, and the timing required. When he says no, it's because he's preparing a better yes. Joseph's life once again shows us this truth. When his brothers sold him into slavery, it looked like his dreams had died. The door to his family, his freedom, and his future was slammed shut. But while Joseph couldn't see it, God was redirecting his life toward the palace of Egypt. The betrayal that broke his heart became the bridge to his destiny. Every closed door in Joseph's life was actually opening a larger one in disguise. If he had stayed home in comfort, he never would have reached his calling. The rejection of men became the redirection of God. Many times our prayers are short-sighted. We ask God to bless our plans, but he loves us too much to let us settle for less than his best. When God closes a door, it is his way of saying, I have something better, but you're not ready to see it yet. If he allowed every opportunity you desired, you might walk away from your true purpose. Closed doors protect your destiny. They force you to pause, reflect, and grow before you enter what he has truly designed for you. In the moment, it is painful. The closed door feels final. You may feel like you've lost control or missed your chance. But God's redirections are never random. They are perfectly timed. Sometimes he allows you to walk towards something just so he can turn you around at the right moment. This turning is not rejection, it's alignment. He is aligning your path with your purpose, even when it doesn't make sense. You may think you are being delayed, but in reality, you are being positioned. Think of Paul in the New Testament. He wanted to preach the gospel in Asia, but the Holy Spirit blocked his way. That was a closed door. Instead, God sent him to Macedonia, where revival broke out and countless lives were changed. Paul later realized that the redirection wasn't a setback, it was strategy. God knew exactly where his message was needed most. In the same way, the opportunities that slip away from you are not accidents. They are part of God's design to place you where your gifts will shine best. Closed doors test our faith. They reveal whether we trust God's plan or only our preferences. It's easy to praise him when things go our way, but true faith says, Lord, even when the door closes, I still believe you are leading me. That kind of trust moves heaven. When you stop fighting closed doors and start trusting the one who controls them, you'll find peace even in confusion. Because God never removes something from your life without replacing it with something greater, every closed door also teaches discernment. It helps you recognize the difference between good opportunities and God opportunities. Not every open door is meant for you, and not every closed door is against you. Some doors are distractions disguised as blessings. God closes them to keep your heart pure and your focus clear. He will never let you enter a place that could destroy the purpose he planted inside you. In your journey, you may find that the most painful rejections eventually become the most precious redirections. The job that didn't hire you, the relationship that ended, the plan that failed, each one was a step towards something bigger. You might not see it yet, but one day when you look back, you will thank God for every no that pushed you closer to your yes. The pattern of your past will reveal the wisdom of his ways. When a door closes, don't stand there knocking in despair. Turn to God and ask, what are you showing me? Sometimes he closes a door to teach you dependence, sometimes to teach patience, and sometimes simply to redirect your focus toward what truly matters. When you trust that his plans are better, you stop chasing every open door and start following his presence. The peace that comes from surrender is far greater than the pain of rejection. One day, you'll walk through a door that feels effortless. Everything will align. The timing, the opportunity, the people. When that happens, you'll understand why all the previous doors were closed. God was not withholding, he was preparing. Every no was making space for a divine yes. Every delay was shaping your character for your destiny. The path may have twisted and turned, but every redirection was leading you straight into his plan. So when doors close before you, don't lose hope. Remember that God is not a destroyer of dreams, he is a divine architect. He is closing off the wrong paths so that you can walk the right one with clarity and purpose. The next time you face a closed door, don't see it as rejection. See it as God's redirection toward destiny, for His plan is always greater, His timing is always perfect, and His way will always lead you exactly where you are meant to be. Faith in God's timing is one of the hardest lessons a believer must learn. We live in a world that celebrates speed, achievement, and instant results. Everyone wants things now, success now, answers now, blessings now, but God does not move according to human schedules. His timing is divine, precise, and deeply purposeful. When you trust His timing, you surrender your calendar to His control and believe that every delay, every detour, and every disappointment has meaning. Faith in God's timing opens the door to supernatural opportunities because it aligns your heart with His eternal plan. When you look through the Bible, every person who walked in divine destiny first had to walk through divine waiting. Abraham was promised a son, but waited 25 years before Isaac was born. Joseph dreamed of greatness as a teenager, but spent years in slavery and prison before stepping into the palace. David was anointed as king long before he wore the crown. Even Jesus waited 30 years before beginning his ministry. God always fulfills His promises, but He never rushes His process. He uses time to prepare you for what He has already prepared for you. When we try to force what is meant to unfold naturally, we create frustration and failure. Many times, people step ahead of God because they confuse delay with denial. But delay is not denial, it is development. God's timing is not about convenience, it is about completion. He knows what needs to grow in you before He can give you what He has for you. If He blessed you too early, you might not have the strength or wisdom to sustain it. Waiting seasons refine your character, stretch your faith, and prepare your heart for responsibility. Faith in God's timing is not passive, it is active trust. It means you keep praying when you don't see results. You keep believing when everything looks impossible. You keep obeying even when your obedience doesn't seem to produce immediate fruit. Faith says, God, I don't see it yet, but I know You're working. That kind of faith opens supernatural doors because heaven responds to trust. When you wait faithfully, God moves powerfully. In our impatience, we often settle for what is good instead of waiting for what is great. We chase opportunities that look promising but are outside God's appointed time. Like Abraham and Sarah, we try to help God fulfill His promise, and in doing so, we create unnecessary pain. When they grew impatient waiting for Isaac, they took matters into their own hands and gave birth to Ishmael. Ishmael represented human timing, Isaac represented divine timing. The difference between the two was not just years, it was destiny. What you birth in impatience will always bring struggle, but what you birth in faith will bring peace. Faith in God's timing teaches you to rest while you wait. Rest does not mean doing nothing, it means trusting completely. It's the peace that says, even if it hasn't happened yet, I know it will. When you truly believe God's promises, you stop panicking about the clock. You realize that the Creator of time cannot be late. Every season of your life has a purpose, and God's timing weaves all those seasons into a perfect story. Sometimes the reason God delays is because He's working on things you can't see. He might be preparing the right people, aligning the right circumstances, or protecting you from unseen dangers. If He opened certain doors too soon, they could destroy you. But when He opens them at the right time, they bless you beyond measure. What looks like waiting on your end is often working on His. God is not slow, He is strategic. When you choose to trust His timing, you stop measuring progress by human standards. You begin to live by divine rhythm. You no longer need to compare yourself to others or fear being left behind. The path God designed for you is unique. Just because someone else reached their destination before you doesn't mean you're late. It simply means your route is different. What God has prepared for you cannot be taken by anyone else. It is reserved, sealed, and waiting for the appointed time. Faith in God's timing also protects you from disappointment. When you truly believe that God controls every detail, you stop labeling things as failures. What looks like loss today may turn out to be protection tomorrow. What feels like delay now may be the very thing that saves you later. Every unanswered prayer, every closed door, and every not yet from God carries wisdom. When you trust His timing, you learn to thank Him not just for what He gives, but also for what He withholds. There comes a moment when, after all the waiting and believing, God moves suddenly. That's the beauty of His timing. It feels slow for years and then happens all at once. Joseph waited for over a decade, and in one day he went from prisoner to prime minister. David waited years in caves, and then in one moment stepped into the throne room. The supernatural often happens in an instant, but it follows years of faithful waiting. When your heart stays steady in the waiting, you are preparing the ground for divine acceleration. Faith in God's timing does not mean the absence of struggle. It means finding peace in the middle of uncertainty. It means choosing to trust even when nothing makes sense. God never forgets His promises, and He never ignores faith. When you remain steadfast in the waiting, you attract divine favor. At the appointed time, the opportunity will come to you. You won't have to chase it. The door will open naturally because it will recognize your preparation. So if you're in a season of waiting, do not lose heart. Heaven's clock runs differently from ours, but it is always on schedule. Keep believing, keep praying, keep trusting. Every second of waiting is shaping your destiny. When the right time comes, the blessing will not just meet your expectations, it will exceed them. God's timing is never late, never early, always perfect. And when faith holds hands with patience, miracles always follow.